sandy shore, and Phocis seal occurs in the folklore of almost every European country. Usually, the hero seeks a flock of seals swimming towards the deserted shore until a full moon and then stepping out of their skins to reveal themselves as young women. He hides behind a rock while they dance naked on the sand, then seizes one of the seal skins, thus winning power over its owner, whom he gets with child. Eventually, they quarrel. She regains her skin and swims away. The dance of the 50 Nereids at Thetis' wedding and her return to the sea after the birth of Achilles appear to be fragments of the same myth, the origin of which seems to have been a ritual dance of 50 seal priestesses dedicated to the moon, which formed a prom to the chief priestess's choice of a sacred king. Here, the scene is set in Aegina, but to judge from the story of Peleus' struggle near Cape Sepias, a similar ritual was performed in Magnesia by a college of cuttlefish priestesses. The cuttlefish appears prominently in Cretan works of art, including the standard weight from the royal treasury at Knossos, or Knossos, however, and also on the megalithic monuments at Karnak and elsewhere in Brittany. It has 8 tentacles, as the sacred anemone of Pelion has 8 petals, 8 being the number of fertility in Mediterranean myth. Pelus, muddy, may have become the sacred king's title after he had been anointed with Sepia, since he is described as the son of Endis, the entangler, a synonym for the cuttlefish. 2. Acastus's hunting party, the subsequent banquet, and the loss of Peleus' magic sword seem to be mistakenly deduced from an icon which showed the preliminaries to a coronation ceremony, coronation implying marriage to the tribal heiress. The scene apparently included the king's ritual combat with men dressed as beasts and the drawing of a regal sword from a cleft rock, misinterpreted by the mythographer as a heap of cow dung. As in the myth of Theseus and King Arthur of Lyonesse, but the ashen spear cut by Charon from Mount Pelion is an earlier symbol of sovereignty than the sword. 3. Thetis' transformation suggests a display of the goddess's seasonal powers presented in a sequence of dances. The myrtle, behind which Peleus first met her, emblemized the last month of his predecessor's reign and therefore served as their rendezvous when his own reign ended. This myth seems to record a treaty marriage attended by representatives of 12 confederate tribes or clans between a Phythian prince and the moon priestess of Iolcus in Thessaly. 4. It may well be that the author of the Old English Siege of Battle of Troy drew on a lost classical source when he made Peleus half man, half horse. That is to say, Peleus was adopted into the Achaeid horse cult clan. Such an adoption will have implied a sacrificial horse feast, which explains the wedding gift of Balius and Zexanthus without a chariot for them to draw. The centaurs of Magnesia and the Thessalians of Iolcus seem to have been bound by an exogamic alliance, hence the statement by the scholiast on Apollonius Rhodius that Peleus' wife was in reality Charon's daughter. 5. Peleus' embarrassment when he looked at the apple thrown down by Eris suggests a picture of the moon goddess in Triad presenting the apple of immortality to the sacred king. Acastus's murder and Peleus' march into the city between the dismembered pieces of Croesus' body may be a misinterpretation of an icon which showed a new king about to ride through the streets of his capital after having ritually hacked his predecessor in pieces with an axe. 6. The frequent murders, accidental or intentional, which cause princes to leave home and be purified by foreign kings whose daughters they then married, are an invention of later mythographers. There is no reason to suppose that Peleus left Aegina or Phytha under a cloud at a time when kingship went by matrilineal succession. Candidates for the throne always came from abroad, and the new king was reborn into the royal house after ritually murdering his predecessor. He then changed his name and tribe, which was expected to throw the vengeful ghost of the murdered man off his scent. Similarly, Telamon of Aegina went to Salamis, was chosen as the new king, killed the old king, who became an oracular hero, and married the chief priestess of an owl college. It was found convenient, in more civilized times when much the same ritual was used to purify ordinary criminals, to forget that kingship implied murder, and to suggest that Pelles, Telamon, and the rest had been involved in crimes or scandals unconnected with their ascension to the throne. The scandal is frequently a false accusation of having attempted a queen's virtue. Cycreus's connection with Eleusinian mysteries and Telamon's marriage to an Athenian prince became important when, in 620 BC, Athens and Marga disputed the possession of Salamis. The Spartans judged the case, and the Athenian ambassadors successfully based their claim on Telamon's connection with Attica. 7. Phocas's death by the discus, like that of Acrisius, seems to be a misinterpretation of an icon which showed the end of the Seal King's reign. The flying discus being a sun disk, as the mythmaker's plane, the sacrificial weapon was an the flying discus being a sun disk, as the myth makes plain. The sacrificial weapon was an axe. Several heroes besides Achilles were killed by a heel wound, and not only in Greek but Egyptian, Celtic, Lydian, Indian, and Norse mythology. 8. The burning of Thetis' sons was common practice, the yearly sacrifice of boy surrogates for the sacred king, period. At the close of the 8th year, the king himself died. A parallel in the Indian Mahabharata is the drowning by the Ganges goddess of her own 7 sons by the god Krishna. He saves the last, Bhishma, then she deserts him. Actor's division of his kingdom into 3 parts is paralleled in the myth of Protus. The sacred king, instead of letting himself be sacrificed when his reign was due to end, retained one part of his kingdom and bequeathed the remainder to his successors. Subsequent kings insisted on a lifetime tenure of sovereignty. 9. Pelles' death at Kos suggests that his name was a royal title there as well as at Phthia, Iolcus, and Salamis. He became king of the Myrmidons because the Pythians worshipped their goddess as Myrmex, Ant. And Antonius Liberalus's story of Thetis and the wolf seems to have been deduced from an icon which showed a priestess of wolfish Aphrodite wearing a Gorgon mask as she sacrifices cattle. Okay.